ship, barked a burly fellow who stood to the left of the bandstand. He had accessorized his tuxedo with a bolo tie and cowboy hat, and was already working his way through a plate piled high with meat. And we all know you save the best food for the formal night. Julian was prepared to promise an impromptu chocolate fountain and make-your-own sushi opportunity, if only everyone would exit in an orderly fashion. But before he could position his megaphone, an attractive older woman stood up and addressed the crowd. She had been crouching on the floor, tending to the more senior of the two bloodied combatants, the sad-faced man who was now cradling his knee. Julian couldn't help but admire the way the woman presented herself. She wore a beautiful blue satin gown that stretched forgivingly across her wide hips, and her hair was swept into a precise chignon. "What is wrong with you people?" she shouted, her voice impressive and thunderous. "From the minute you woke up this morning, you've been stuffing your faces, pushing and shoving in the buffet lines like you've never seen a croissant before. Get a grip on yourselves. My husband was just punched in the face by my son-in-law, who has apparently hated our family for the past 20 years. "That's not true," said the other erstwhile combatant in a breathy voice as he was lifted onto a stretcher by the paramedics. This second, younger man was obviously the bitter son-in-law. "It's just you guys, acting juvenile. And You do not need to defend yourself," belted a younger woman in a pink dress who stood beside the man's stretcher. She stared daggers at the ballsy lady in the blue satin and said, "Mitch has nothing to apologize for, mother." Holy hell. A dueling mother-daughter ensemble was certainly not needed on the night that was meant to be the crescendo of the trip, the black tie party known as an enchanted evening, which would set the tone for how generous the guests would be when parceling out gratuities. And if they weren't opening their wallets widely, Julian would be hearing about it from everyone on the staff, from the lifeguards down to the porters, the whole crew blaming him for not keeping the guests happy. "Everyone, listen to the cruise director and get off of this deck now," yelled the mother. Then the daughter chimed in. "You will be fed. You will have your formal night. You will be enchanted, for heaven's sake. Just let the doctors attend to my husband in peace." "Mom? Elise? What the hell is going on?" asked a middle-aged man as he pushed through the crowd. The newcomer had graying hair tied in a bun, and, as Julian couldn't help noticing, his outfit did not conform to the night's dress code requirement. He was tugging on the hand of a human Barbie doll teetering along in 4-inch heels. Julian blinked twice. This overly made-up girl wearing a dress that could have doubled as an ace bandage was none other than the amazing yogini he'd met in Ashtanga class earlier that day. A picture was forming in Julian's mind. This was the Feldman family. He vaguely remembered chatting with them at the around-the-world dinner the night before, and he'd seen the daughter, her name was Elyssa, just hours earlier in the coffee shop. They were all on board to celebrate a big birthday. If memory served him correctly, they were vacationing together in honor of the matriarch in blue. Julian hated to see things like this happen on one of his trips. And not just because it meant reduced gratuities and filing extra paperwork with the corporate office. It truly broke his heart when a family with grand plans to bond and share quality time was reduced to blows and name-calling. This wasn't the first time it had happened, and it wouldn't be the last. Maybe it was the fact that passengers on cruise vacations were sequestered from the outside world, and that submerged feelings were bound to surface whenever people volunteered to isolate themselves. Or maybe it was the consistent low-level nausea they experienced at sea that activated bad behavior. Julian had one theory, originally espoused by the ship's previous captain, that involved those motion sickness patches everyone stuck behind their ears. He posited that they actually worked like hearing aids, amplifying all the irritations that normally went unnoticed. Julian's assistant, Lindsay, approached him from behind.